The Saints lose 24-15 to the Atlanta Falcons behind 5 field goals from Blake Grupe and no touchdowns from the offense. A pick six from Derek Carr. And let's get into this football game because it was not a fun one to watch as a Saints fan, if I'm being totally honest. There was some glimpses in this game where Chris Olave was going. He was 7 for 114 before he left the game. Tyrann Mathieu with 2 interceptions. We're going to get into some of the details of the game, but want to start with a little of action that happened after the game with the Alvin Kamara post-game pressure and then a couple of players that were actually signed off of our practice squad. And we really needed these guys after these injuries in the Falcons game. Jason Pierre-Paul, we know how the Saints brought him in. I said he might have provided some value, but not a whole lot. More than anything, veteran presence. Maybe he'll give you 3 or 4, clutch sacks this year. He gets signed off the practice squad. We just see Cameron Jordan go down with the injury in the Falcons game. Don't know the extent of that yet. I think he's going to be okay, but the Saints don't rush the passer well, and it felt good getting Jason Pierre-Paul actually in with the New Orleans Saints. This also happened with Jalen Smith, a guy who has been an all-pro linebacker, a Pro Bowl linebacker who was a tackling machine in the NFL. Why are the Saints not utilizing these guys? Why are these guys sitting on the practice squad? And I understand, as a podcaster, as a fan, as some of the media out there, we don't necessarily understand what's going on with a Jason Pierre-Paul on the practice squad and with a Jalen Smith. Obviously, the scouts are seeing something maybe we're not. But then when you also look at the dynamic of the New Orleans Saints and how bad the defense has been over the last 4, 5, 6 games, there's got to be some changes. And you're starting to think that, are the Saints really running this thing more like a family than it is a business? Because we need to see things change nonetheless. The Saints are not playing good defense the last month, and letting 2 guys like this slip away, I know they weren't going to change the defense completely, but having them signed off the practice squad and not even seeing a snap of JPP or even Jalen Smith, why do we do this type of stuff? We need people due to injuries not being able to rush the passer as well. And it's, we even look at the signing of Jimmy Graham, like, why the hell do we even sign Jimmy Graham if he's a healthy scratch, if he's constantly inactive? He catches 1 touchdown pass, and we never see him again. It's just moved like this from the Saints that really start to get under my skin. But now into the Falcons game itself. So we hear Alvin Kamara in the post-game presser throwing shade at coaching. One of your best players, it's starting to get more internal with the New Orleans Saints. I've talked about it with, Michael Thomas getting arrested. I know that's not necessarily it is a situation that affects the team, but when you have that outside noise coming in, whether it's, instances like that, or Alvin Kamara calling out the coaching, or it's clear that the play calling isn't working on the field, there's levels to dysfunction in a franchise as it shows up, and I believe this is another one of them. Alvin Kamara saying that the players aren't lost amongst each other in the locker room, but said something along the lines of the coaching might be lost in the locker room. And I want AK to be a Saint for life. I want AK to be able to make the Hall of Fame, and I don't like the way that he's really been treated these last couple of years with the New Orleans Saints after the Drew Brees and the Sean Payton era. It's very disheartening to see. And unfortunately, I feel like someone could come in and sign number 41. And I don't want number 41 to get signed to another team. I bought AK's jersey for a reason over Michael Thomas. It's note to be taken when one of your best players in Alvin Kamara, who is actually performing very well this year, look at his touchdowns, look at his scrimmage yards, he's speaking out about how this team is performing horribly, because Alvin Kamara is not a loser. Alvin Kamara does not like to lose football games at all. And when you see him talking about this type of stuff, it's going to make you definitely take notice. Who dat? What's up, brother? Darby, clean house. You already know, man. We say that every week here on the show when we come to talking about the Saints, but just another, boneheaded offensive scheme. You look at the Saints not running a whole lot of play action in this game, let alone on the year. They ran the league's least 45 play action plays. And Derek Carr, on this specific type of play, Derek Carr is deadly. Derek Carr has one of the best completion percentages in the NFL when he runs play action. Is this not a Dennis Allen buddy system built here? I understand it's Pete Carmichael calling the plays and everything, but if you're going to tell your boy do what he wants, put something in place for your boy. I know DA's not the play caller. I know he's a defensive mind, but Derek Carr from the Raiders days. Let's have some common sense and actually build a system around him for him to be able to be successful. I'm not just talking about players. I'm talking about play calls. And everybody in the NFL knows that Pete Carmichael is one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive coordinator in the National Football League. But check Derek Carr's numbers. Very high completion percentage on, on play action. Dennis Allen is now 20-44 as a head coach. He has a worse head coach winning percentage than Saints fans. Are you ready for this? Adam Gase, Cliff Kingsbury, Josh McDaniels, and Doug Marrone with a 32% win percentage. Dennis Allen's horrible tenure with the New Orleans Saints continues to grow. And I hate to see some of the posts out on Twitter like, something's telling me the Saints aren't going to let go of Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael next year. I don't know how you don't. Is this an instance of we're just looking to make money from the tickets and the apparel and not put a good product on the field, and we're just all buddy in arms because we're all making our money and we're familiar with each other? Or are we going to face the music and blow it up and get rid of Dennis Allen and go chase an Eric Bieniemy that we had in the building, go chase a Ben Johnson, go chase a Frank Smith, go get some sort of offensive-minded head coach, because the Saints fans are losing fans with the fan base right now. And we're going to have fair weather fans with every football team. But the Saints are now in a point where the fan base is going to slowly start to dwindle off, as if it hadn't already happened when Drew Brees and Sean Payton left. Dennis Allen is not doing anything to set this team up for success. And yes, I said anything because even his defense over the past month has been horrible. And you look at Dennis Allen in the post-game presser trying to blame the red zone struggles on penalties. The Saints had 6 of their 8 drives inside the Falcons' 35-yard line. The Saints had 6 of their 8 drives end inside the Falcons' 35-yard line. No touchdowns. They were over 5 inside the 20 in the red zone. And besides the first and the last drive of the game, or second to last drive of the game, I'm mistaken, all of their drives finished in Atlanta territory. And like I said, I'll take it even further, inside the Atlanta 35. Derek Carr with another empty yards game, 300-plus yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. The Saints are now 2-3 this year in games where Derek Carr throws for over 300 yards. I'm 0-3 in my last 3 games that I've went and watched the Saints play in. They lost to the Bengals last October when Darby and I went. They lost to the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football when we went again. And they have lost to the Atlanta Falcons in this embarrassing no-touchdown performance. Thankfully, though, I'm 500 in my lifetime and all my games attended. I'm now 3-3 as a fan attending games. Derek Carr throws another pick six, only his second one of the year. It has been so heartbreaking to watch Derek Carr throw both of his pick sixes live. I've been in the stands in New Orleans, and now out of all places for him to not do it, I was in the stands in Atlanta, and I'm going to just say, Jesse Bates ran the longest 92 yards of my life, and I watched every Falcons fan erupt with jubilation. Jesse Bates made a hell of a play. Now, it wasn't a difficult play for him to make. He watched Derek Carr's eyes the whole time. Derek Carr stared down his target the whole time. It was going to be a tight slant that maybe would have been complete on the inside. I don't believe it would have because Carr was off all day. Jesse Bates literally read his eyes, jumped it, and he was like, I'm gone. 92 yards to the house. Jesse Bates made a hell of a play. Shout out to Jesse Bates for the fumble on Taysom Hill as well. The punch out on Taysom was absolutely perfect, but it's been painful to watch Derek Carr's only 2 pick sixes happen live this year. And the Saints got absolutely gashed in the trenches. Maybe not so much on the offensive side in terms of protecting Derek Carr, but they couldn't handle Bijan Robinson. They couldn't handle Tyler Algier. Over 220 rushing yards allowed on New Orleans. Do you remember that streak of 20, 30 games where New Orleans didn't allow a 100-yard rusher? And then it finally got broke against the Eagles with not only Jalen Hurts, but was it Jordan Howard? I can't remember the running back, but it was both of them ran for over 100 yards on us, and it was a very tough day that day in Philadelphia. That was the first time Jalen Hurts actually diced us up with his legs. Drake London had a day, plenty of big catches. Drake London now in his 5 matchups against the Saints, if I'm thinking about that stat correctly, he's got at least 5 catches for 70 yards every time he plays New Orleans. The 4 Falcons who had rushing attempts yesterday, Bijan Robinson, Desmond Ridder, or not yesterday, in the game, Bijan Robinson, Desmond Ridder, Cordero Patterson, and Tyler Algier, all 4 of them had a rush of 12-plus yards in the game. The Saints just got gashed on the defensive side of the ball. And once it got towards the end of the game, you could tell that every single play was going to be Bijan or Tyler Algier just throwing, or not throwing, just running the football down the throat of the Saints, just pounding the rock through that defensive line. And everybody in the stadium knew that was going to happen. And Dennis Allen couldn't stop it. He couldn't stack enough people in the box to just keep someone from getting 2, 3, 4 yards on a carry. Dennis Allen going to be the head coach next season and get his win percentage down to 20. I can't believe you would come on my show and say something like that. Carr has no accountability. Loomis also thinks there's no problem. That's where you know it's kind of broken. We're going to talk about Frank Reich later in the show. If your owner, coach, GM, and quarterback, if any of the four of them are not on the same page or they're not accountable, wow, kind of like with the Saints, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Mickey thinks we have the right people in the building. That's hilarious. I hope he's talking about the players. We do have the right players in the building for sure, and I hope Mickey's talking about the same thing as well, because it's for damn sure that we don't have the right coaching staff. Miles Sanders, that's who it was. Miles Sanders freaking cut us up, man. That was very, very tough. But this defense stinks now. I mean, Desmond Ridder had his way rushing the football. Tyson Bagent has had his way rushing the football. Josh Dobbs has had his way rushing the football. We can't guard running quarterbacks. That's just a fact. I don't know what the adjustment that Dennis Allen can or can't make, but it's called a QB spy. It's called having an extra man to account for the quarterback. And don't tell me that the secondary can't cover, because we've been playing lockdown pass defense all year. Again, I understand the last few weeks, the defense hasn't been the greatest, but still. It's not a hard adjustment to keep a quarterback contained. And I was nervous about Derek Carr playing in this game as well. It came off the concussion, the big hit from Danielle Hunter about 2.5, almost 3 weeks ago now. Of course, he hurt his shoulder in that game. But Derek Carr was horrible in the game after he was hurt with the shoulder in the Tampa Bay game, where we lose 27-9 to Baker Mayfield in New Orleans. Absolutely disgusting. And it kind of felt the same in this game. He just missed throw after throw, multiple touchdowns open downfield. Derek Carr is what he is. I believe unless Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael are out of there next year and we get two great offensive, or even just two good offensive minds, if they can come in on a 7.5 out of 10 on the scale of just offensive-minded greatness, just for giggles, right? Talking about it there. I believe Derek Carr can enough to win a championship level. I know that's not a league, but it'll be better than the bottom 10, play that we're seeing out of Derek Carr right now. But it feels like Derek Carr's already hit his thing with Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. I mean, he is what he is. And you even got Raiders fans out here telling me this is who Derek Carr is. He's going to give you some impressive throws from time to time, give you some empty stats. He's going to miss some really easy throws, some layups. He's got the third worst red zone completion percentage in the NFL this year. That pick six was actually the first red zone interception he's thrown all year. And again, it was a horrible throw. Jesse Bates read his eyes, stepped up and ran. Just one veteran reading another. But we have to draft a quarterback early this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The New Orleans Saints have to draft a quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft. Far too much talent to not have the Saints tank somebody. And I know they've only done it once in 56 years, and it was Archie Manning. But the Saints are positioned to where if they wanted to tank, they could. Absolutely. Let Atlanta go win the division at this point if you want to, because you need to be thinking for the future and all that backloaded, mortgaged in cash that you've got in this salary cap right now. We're going to talk about Derek Carr's contract in a second as well. Make some trades, something. Because the Saints have to go secure a quarterback, get the future in the building, and I don't give a damn if Derek Carr is the most expensive backup in the league. That is the realistic approach. But no, Dennis Allen said, blank check for my boy. Let's write it up. Let's do what he wants. And now the Saints are dealing with the disgustingness of Derek Carr. It just amazes me that 10 years into this league and he's still making rookie mistakes. Yeah. Are we crazy, or does it seem like Derek Carr gets an injury when we're losing bad? I'm talking about the time he acted like his nuts was hurting. You're hilarious. I don't know, man. I just know that Derek Carr is not a guy that plays solid football more times than not. And if you don't have that in this league, you're not going to go far. You're not going to win championships. You're not going to win divisions. You're not going to go to the playoffs. You're not going to win playoff games. I was optimistic for Derek Carr. I wasn't excited about the $150 million because we gave a 10-year veteran who had hit his head on the ceiling with the organization that believed in him and drafted him, and he hit his peak in the MVP year, and he had the best receiver and running back that year. I understand it was under the tutelage of Josh McDaniels, which goes to show you it's all about coaching in this league. They moved on from Derek Carr, and Dennis Allen wanted to be comfortable and go get him. And now we're a 5-6 football team. And Tommy DeVito threw more touchdown passes in November than Derek Carr did. Have y'all heard that stat of the Saints have scored 3 touchdowns on their last 32 offensive possessions? 2 came from the arm of Jameis Winston. 1 came from the arm of Taysom Hill. That's how long it's been since Derek Carr has thrown a touchdown pass. Let's talk about Derek Carr's contract a little bit before we get we'll talk about that at the end. Chris Olave had 7 for 114. It was actually his first time since week 3, disgustingly enough, that he's had over 100 yards before he left in the third quarter with the concussion. I really think that Chris Olave would have went for over 200 on the day. Atlanta really didn't have an answer for him, and he was just having a hell of a game. Atlanta could not keep up. Kamara, Hill made good plays too, but there were just no points that came out of it. The Saints finally started trying out new kickers after Blake Grupe gets injured. Shout out to him for hitting the first 5 kicks, but of course he misses the one that we needed the most to make an attempt at a comeback in the fourth quarter. We should have been trying out new kickers as Blake Grupe was not looking very solid coming in. The Will Lutz and the Blake Gillikin move off was not looking very solid with special teams, and as we see, it's just been a ripple effect for the New Orleans Saints. So we finally start trying out kickers, but we'll see what happens with Blake Grupe. Lynn Bowden had a couple of nice plays with some creativity. Maybe we can utilize him, a little more as we do see these injuries piling up. But injuries decimated us in this game. No Marshawn Lattimore, no Michael Thomas, no Kendre Miller before the game. Chris Olave leaves, Rashid Shaheed leaves, Cam and Jamal leave the game. Eric McCoy and Ryan Ramczyk get hurt, but then they come back in, and things just piled up so quickly for the New Orleans Saints.